What would you do if right in front of you, a tiny being was gasping for its last few breaths? I will never forget that moment. In the damp, cold grass, a tiny body lay motionless, trembling as if about to dissolve into the darkness. Its eyes were gently closed, its chest heaving weakly, each frail breath like a thread that could snap at any moment. When I lifted it up, the weightlessness made me shiver, as if I were holding an entire life suspended between life and death. In that instant, a question carved into my heart. If I walk away, would it still have any chance? And the answer came ringing clear. No. On that first night, I sat beside the small box lined with soft cloth, trembling as though I myself were the fragile one who needed saving. I dripped warm milk into its mouth, praying and trembling, because any moment could be the last. But then, in the silence, I saw its tiny legs stir, its head tilt slightly, as if clinging to life. At that moment, tears fell from my eyes, not from sorrow, but because I realized a miracle was beginning to bloom. And that was only the first day of a 7-day miracle. Day 3 began with a tiny spark of hope, which for me was the light of an entire sky. When I held the little feeding bottle to its mouth, I saw its tiny lips gently move, and it swallowed a few first drops of milk without being as weak as before. Although only a few small sips, for me that was no less than a victory. I smiled through my tears and whispered, "Well done. You can do it." I hardly took my eyes off it all day. Every time it moved slightly, I carefully noted it in a small notebook, as if keeping a special journal where I wanted to preserve every sign of revival. That frail little body began to gain a bit of strength, and occasionally the tiny feet would lightly kick the cloth, as though practicing running in a dream. On day 4, the miracle became more evident. When I opened the box, it no longer lay inert as before. It lifted its head gently, its eyes glimmering and opening slightly, looking around with faint curiosity. The moment its gaze met mine, I felt that all the sleepless effort had been worth it. I realized it had begun to trust my presence, the person temporarily taking the place of the mother it had lost. I lifted it into my arms carefully. Instead of the chill from before, there was a faint warmth spreading, like a whisper. "I am coming back." I brought it close to my chest so it could hear my steady heartbeat, hoping that sense of safety would help it rest. And when it closed its eyes, its breathing soft but steady, I knew that this life and death battle was beginning to turn toward a different outcome, one I had not dared to hope for just days earlier. Days 3 and 4 closed, but for me they opened a new belief. If I just held on a little longer, the miracle would truly manifest. From that point on, I was not merely caring for a tiny being. I was witnessing a daily written miracle. Day 5 arrived like a milestone. In the morning, when I opened the small box, instead of finding a body waiting for milk, it lifted its head slightly. Its eyes were now wider open, innocent but clear. I held the bottle near again. This time there was no waiting. It opened its mouth and nuzzled every drop, the tiny feet even lightly scratching my hand as if afraid it would be taken away. That image made me laugh through tears, my heart filled with that simple but deep happiness. Life was truly awakening. That day, I began letting it out of the box for longer. On the soft blanket, it tentatively turned, the legs trembling but persistent. Sometimes it stumbled down, seemingly ready to give up. But then it would push itself up again. Each time that happened, my heart clenched and then burst, as though witnessing a baby's first steps. The way it battled its weakness made me silent. It turned out that even the smallest being can possess a will to live more powerful than we think. By day 6, the change was even clearer. It no longer lay quietly in my hands. Instead, it began climbing up my arm, nestling into the folds of my shirt, as if seeking a world beyond that cramped box. Its round eyes lit up each time sunlight streamed through the window. The tiny sound it made was no longer the lost cry of earlier days, but a greeting from life itself, faint yet full of hope. I made sure to record every moment. When it lifted its head to look around, when it managed a few small steps, then fell, when it curled into my palm like a child seeking shelter. I knew that these images would become not only memories, but proof of the power of love and patience. Days 5 and 6 closed in joy, but also with a sense of poignancy. I understood that the moment it would be truly strong enough to leave my arms would come soon. And when that moment arrives, I will feel both joy and fear. Joy because it will live, and fear because I will have to learn to say goodbye. On day 7, I woke after a long night and realized I was no longer anxious like before. My heart raced, not from fear that it might not survive, but in anticipation of seeing its next step forward. When I approached the familiar box, the miracle happened. It did not wait to be lifted. It stood up on its own, the tiny legs trembling but stable. Its round eyes shone brightly, looking at me not as a fragile savior, but as a small friend wanting to say, "I did it." I gently placed it on the mat, and this time, instead of a few wobbly steps, it ran. The legs shot forward, its little tail fanning out like a flag. I watched in awe, my throat tightening. Just 7 days ago, I thought I was witnessing its final breaths, yet now, here before me, a being once held in the palm of my hand had come alive with all its innocence and strength. It climbed onto my hand, then jumped off, ran around the small room, making soft sounds like a melody heralding good news. I sat there, laughing and crying at once. In that moment, I understood. It was not that I had saved it, but that it had taught me a lesson about faith, about perseverance, and above all about the miraculous power of love, the kind that can illuminate even the darkest places. When the morning sun streamed through the window, it paused and looked up at the sky, its bright eyes reaching for freedom. I knew that soon I would have to open the door and let it return to the natural world it belongs to. Just thinking of that parting moment made my heart ache, then a gentle smile formed. Because what matters is not holding it close, but seeing it live, truly live, with all the strength and freedom it deserves. Day 7 did not just close a chapter of revival, but echoed a message in my soul. Sometimes, just a bit of patience and a loving heart can create a miracle. And I believe that anyone watching this story will realize, in a world full of storms, love and compassion still have the power to heal, not only the smallest beings, but us as well.